Hello there everyone, how you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today we're going over the answers to a question. What's a local rumor you heard as a kid that turned out to be true years later? And we've got plenty of responses down here for us. If you enjoy, like, subscribe, leave a comment down below and hit that notification bell. Let's get started, shall we? The most popular boy in middle school disappeared after the 7th grade. Literally, his parents sold their house and moved to a new house nearby, but pretty secluded. He enrolled in a really expensive private school and cut off all ties with his friends. At the same time, a really popular male social studies teacher went on leave. Rumors circulated that the boy was molested by the teacher, and that's why they were both gone. The other popular kids got really angry when people said that because, well, they really liked this teacher and the kid. Eventually, people stopped talking about it. Fast forward to senior year in high school, he shows up at our prom as the date of his 5th grade girlfriend. First time anyone has seen him in years. Apparently, he reached out to the girl to ask if she had had a date because he wanted to see all his old friends one last time. Apparently, he was molested by the teacher during tutoring sessions at the teacher's home. The school district and his parents agreed to bury it in exchange for tuition to the private school. He never wanted to leave and really resented his parents for it. By the time prom rolled around, he was 18, and they couldn't stop him. He wanted to set the story straight and let everyone know he was sorry for just disappearing. Wow, that's heartbreaking. But it sounds like his spirit was not broken, which is a very good thing. Girl in my high school was rumored to have been dating one of the teachers who was married. This was probably because after graduation the teacher had retired, divorced his wife, and married the girl. A girl in my high school was also rumored to be sleeping with the school resource officer. It turned out to be true. We all found out because he had R-worded her 5 or 6-year-old sister, and the girl told his wife, and the wife was going to turn him in, so he offed his wife and went on the run. He was on America's Most Wanted and the U.S. Marshals Top 10 Most Wanted list for a long time. Like, he was only removed from the top 10 list recently, within the past year or so. Officer Daniel Ayers, I believe it was. Oh boy, that was a thing. There was a taco truck in town that sold weed if you asked for a side of lettuce. Nice. A vagrant-looking man used to collect cans from the local parks and whatnot. Imagine someone pushing a shopping cart in tattered clothing. The rumor was he was generationally wealthy, and when he passed away, he left a fortune to the park and recreational department to update facilities. We used to have a local homeless lady, supposedly a Vietnam Army nurse. Her experiences there ruined her, and she refused help from her wealthy family. It was all rumors, though, until she passed. Her family turned out to be people who owned Utz potato chips. They paid for her funeral now she wasn't around to refuse money or help anymore. Oh, that's just heartbreaking. One of my 4th grade teachers seemed a bit creepy and loved taking pictures of his class. A few years later, he got busted with a few gigabytes of CP on his computer, and this was in the 90s. Much later, like after I finished high school and college later, I decided to Google his name again. He got out of prison after 8 or 9 years, and then within a year got busted again and immediately went back. This older kid had this lightning streak scar over one side of his neck and down his body. The rumor was he was throwing stuff at the power lines behind our neighborhood. Turns out he was. He was throwing copper wire at it, and it arced. He's lucky to be alive. that a quiet and polite dude we knew growing up was a murderous and ruthless gang leader. We used to go to his parties. We saw him on the town and always exchanged pleasantries. We would see him at the bar, and there was little indication that he was not to be messed with. Until one day we bumped into him in a parking lot, again exchanging pleasantries. How are you? What's going on this weekend? So on. A truck pulled up a couple of spots over. He said, "Just a sec," and calmly walked over to talk to the guy. A short conversation ensued, and he opened the driver door and started pummeling the guy, like on top of him in the driver's seat, punching down. We were stunned. After a short while, he got out of the truck and walked back to calmly finish his conversation with us like nothing happened. We saw the truck pull away, so we think the guy lived. A few years afterwards, more rumors surfaced about him, and it made sense that they were true. Until one day, his arrest made international headline news. He received a heavy sentence for a lot of different crimes. He likely won't ever be free, and his affiliates are still doing business. A doctor in town who was a huge football booster gave prescription painkillers to high school kids. He passed away before it all came to light, so he never saw justice. Lots and lots of kids through the years, unsurprisingly, became addicted. This is a little more lighthearted, but when I was in elementary school, probably like 3rd grade, all the kids in my class would joke about how our primary teacher and our Spanish teacher liked each other. We were all little kids, so of course it was just dumb little kids joking around. That is, until a few years later when I was in middle school and found out my old teacher and the Spanish teacher recently got married. That if you rode bikes or four-wheelers down this certain trail, an old man would come after you and attack you. A few years later, some kids were riding four-wheelers down that trail, and an old guy shot and killed them both. It's the damnedest thing. They had already left his property before he caught up to them, and he killed them on public land. I'm pretty sure he died in prison a few years ago. One persistent rumor that went around during high school was that one of our biology teachers was having naughties with students. We all thought it was a joke because the guy was admittedly rather ugly looking, and we all knew his wife, a fellow teacher, was always around. The years pass, and I find out that the male teacher was found having several relationships with underage students. He got arrested, divorced, put on the sex offender registration, and lost custody of his kids. The U.S. Midwest. Rumor has it that way up in the old road out of town, somewhere in the woods, was a satanic cult that held seances and other mystical rituals by firelight. Scared the willies out of us kids, and our parents wouldn't let us ride our bikes anywhere on that road. Decades later, I was working on a commissioned history project for the town, and talked about the old man who owned the oldest homestead in the country, way back in the woods along that road. While photographing the creek that ran through the stone foundation basement of the home, which the settlers used for water generations ago, I noted the burned-out tea candles everywhere. The guy lit up and said, "Yeah, back in his younger days, he and his wife used to host elaborate costume parties at the property, often by candlelight for the fun of it. He had heard the rumors of the satanic cult and thought it was hilarious, so he and his friends ran with it and held the parties in monks' robes, and had bonfires and lived it up. He still laughs about it now, and now I can too." Whew. We had something similar. There was an abandoned boarding school that had been built in the 1890s or so, and abandoned sometime in the 1980s. Local teens, through devil worshippers, had taken it over, and were performing rituals there because of the creepy vibe, and because of the graffiti pentagrams, and inverted crosses and stuff. There were also stories about kids exploring at night and hearing the devil worshippers coming. The graffiti was just graffiti, and the noises heard were just multiple groups exploring the building at the same time. The city restored the building and turned it into a library. There was a rumor at my high school that the building down the way was a cult. I wasn't unheard of to dare people to go over there, and you'd end up being followed or sometimes invited to dinner. Turns out it was the headquarters of the cult of Duggars we're in. IBLP. I was watching that documentary and my mind was blown, because all of the high school rumors had been true. I have two, both about elderly men. First, there was an elderly man that could be seen walking all over town. A long gray beard, usually seen in tattered clothes. The Walking Man or the Silver Bullet were nicknames for him. The rumor was that he was actually really wealthy, but lots of people just assumed he was homeless because he was always walking, carrying groceries or whatever. Well, about a year before he passed, it came out that he was actually one of the wealthiest residents in our town, when he donated millions to the local youth program in schools. Turns out he just liked walking a lot and placed no value on material things such as clothes and cars. Secondly, there was an elderly man who was actually homeless. The rumor was that he drank himself crazy some years back and just never got help. He was in and out of jail a bunch, but always seemed to be given some slack by law enforcement. The truth is tragic. He did drink himself crazy, out of necessity. He was a paramedic. One night he responded to a wreck that turned out to be his wife and daughter had been hit by a distracted driver, speeding on a narrow road. Neither survived. Understandably, he was never okay after that. He would sometimes check the pizza shop I used to manage for spare slices. Broke my heart that all I could do was offer him some free pizza. Hope you can find some peace now, Red. That's such a sad story. Poor guy. Always heard rumors that this kid who I rode BMX with, his dad was a high-ranking member of the Hells. One day we're over there, years later, chatting stuff up around the fire in his backyard, and about 70 patched members arrived at the house for a meeting. They bought a buttload of beer and told us to find a park to drink it in for a few hours while they had their meeting. Just imagining one of the Hells Angels sitting there in their meeting, grumbling that this could have been an email and he could have been in the park drinking beer instead. There was a rumor that our neighbor was pedo, married with kids. One day he drops dead of a heart attack. When the family started going through his stuff, they were so disgusted. Apparently just sold the house as is with the furniture and everything. Imagine being the buyers, though. Ugh. One of the teachers in my school got pregante by a student, but they didn't know which one. She had slept with 7 in total. Rumor about a local businessman who tried to end it all and was rescued. Some weeks later, he ran into a burning building and rescued 2 young children, sustaining severe burns in the process. A few months later, I saw him in the pub on the green. All of his skin and his face and hands had melted, and he had skin grafted everywhere. The happiest man in the pub. What a hero. There was a rumor in our high school that a teacher was child naughtier. If you know, you know. We didn't know who it was, but we had some guesses. We found out a long time after that the supposed teacher, child naughtier, had R-worded, tortured, and murdered a few kids over the years, and he got caught after the cops started investigating. I think he slipped up somewhere, but I'm not sure how they found him. Turns out he's a predator pedo R-wordist the entire time during the school, and that we weren't aware since he'd prey on children and not teenagers. I hope you rot in jail, Mr. Sanders, and the rot will consume you. Anyway, on to the next story. When I was in high school, there were rumors about a kid in my class. sexually assaulting a bunch of kids. He was a very weird kid. Everyone assumed it wasn't true and just a mean rumor. During a class, another kid said something to him about it. He angrily shouted, "Nothing has been proven yet." The entire class just stopped and awkwardly stared at him. This was some 30 years ago. He's still in prison for sexually assaulting dozens of kids while working in his church's history. That's the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed the stories I had for you. If you did, like, subscribe, leave a comment with your thoughts on the stories down below, hit that notification bell, and who knows, maybe you can check out my comic dub channel. I recently made it, and it's doing real well. I will see you all next time. Hasta la pasta.